Welcome.
Welcome to the Everything podcast, and in this episode I'm going to be continuing looking at the Big Finish news released in July and August 2024. We're now up to the 22nd of August 2024, which was when the cover for the third box set for Jenny the Doctor's Daughter Saving Time was unveiled. So we're going to have a look at the press release for this one. So the press release is titled Jenny's Enemies Old and New. Georgia Tennant is joined by Anna Lundberg in Jenny the Doctor's Daughter's Saving Time, due for release in October. Story and casting are revealed today, so we can look at the cover here. So we've got Dorian on there, we've got Noah, Jenny, and this new character played by Anna Lundberg. Let's read on. So we've got a little synopsis here, I think, for the box set, and it reads: Jenny was created from the Doctor's template, so it's no wonder she finds herself in trouble a lot. Exploring the universe with Noah, a mystery boy from nowhere may have escaped the missionary hunting them, but wrecks the timelines in process. Now Jenny must find a way to save herself, her friend, and everything around to it, time itself. Jenny, played by Georgia Tennant, the artificially created daughter of the Doctor, returns for 4 new adventures in Saving Time, a brand new box set of full cast audio drama. Along with her friend Noah, played by Sean Biggerstaff, she'll encounter troublesome monsters and villains across time and space. The most dangerous enemy of all is Juxtable Joyce. She's the richest woman in the universe and has a terrible scheme to rebuild the Earth the way that she wants it to be. Jexbel is voiced by Anna Lundberg, who's best known as Georgia Tennant's co-star in the BBC sitcom Stage, now making her Big Finish debut. The box set also features a return of Stuart Milligan as the alien con artist Grandrel, as well as Simon Fisher-Becker as the slippery Dorian Maldivar, first seen in the 2010 Doctor Who TV episode The Pandorica Opens. The 4 new adventures for Jenny are. So the first one is titled Florence O'Connor and the Sandwich of Doom, Florence O'Connor and the Sandwich of Doom, which is written by John Dorney, with the synopsis for this episode being: Jenny has solved her immediate problem of being hunted by the cyborg Colt 5000 bounty hunter, once known as Geraldine. Jenny's new problem is that she's now being hunted by a cyborg Colt 5000, also known as her best friend Noah. The timelines are in chaos. There is only one way to fix things, and it involves cheese and pickle. The second story's box set is titled A Beginner's Guide to Monsters and How to Slay Them, which is written by Roshana Patel. Here's the synopsis for the episode: Escaping the 20th century, Jenny and Noah arrive in a medieval monastery under siege from monsters lifted from the very pages of the bestiary the monks are working to create. How can they possibly defeat creatures of myth and legend with griffins, manticores, and unicorns on the loose? Jenny needs to learn fast. The third story in this box set is titled Genesis of the Humans and is written by Adrian Poynton. There we are. And here is what the synopsis says. After another manipulation by Dorian Maldivar, Jenny and Noah found themselves on a job for the conniving conman and his partner in crime, the equally slippery Grandrel. This time, Jenny and Noah must venture inside a genetic treasure, one which holds the key to the future and the past of the human race. His name is Theo. The fourth and final story in this box set is titled Reboot, which is written by Lizzie Hopley. Jenny and Noah finally face the new nemesis, Jexbel Joyce, the richest woman in the universe. With Noah a prisoner, Jenny is trapped on an Earth owned by the Gilsbrand, where everyone is encouraged to raise virtual children instead of the real thing. Jenny faces her greatest challenge yet, saving the universe whilst taking care of her Giles kids. Anna Lundberg said, working with Georgia is a pleasure. Before we play versions of ourselves on stage, whereas here we get to play these very heightened characters and be enemies. Jezebel is a mysterious force of nature, very temperamental, and she's the richest being in the universe. She's trying to create a superhuman kind of civilization, and she doesn't care who goes down along the way. She's ruthless. Georgia Tennant added, it's very exciting to work with Anna again. As a baddie to my goodie this time, it's nice to have someone that you know very well. It's not it's not really like that. She's much nicer in real life, mostly. So Journey the Doctor's also, same time, just a reminder, releases in August 2024. I'll be reviewing it. Obviously, where it goes with this depends upon how long the episodes are. But there's no vortex for it as of yet. And yeah. So next up, we're now moving to another day later, on the 23rd of August 2024, which is when Dark Gallifrey The War Master Part 2 was released. So next up, I'll be talking about the press release for it, as well as the trailer. So the press release for the Dark Gallifrey The War Master Part 2 is titled Master Charmer. The War Master and Captain John vie for Bernie Summerfield's attention in Dark Gallifrey The War Master Part 2, which was released today from Big Finish Productions. So let's read on. The epic audio drama event series Dark Gallifrey continues today with the second installment in the War Master trilogy. Professor Bernie Summerfield, played by Lisa Bauman, is lecturing at Bristol University, where she's attracted the attention of a devilishly charmer suitor, Captain John Hart, played by James Master, who's reprising his role from the Torchwood TV series. To add to her problems, the universe's new provost is none other than the Master, played by Sir Derek Jacobi, and both of these men have an ulterior motive to use Benny in their plans to find the legendary Dark Gallifrey. Also featuring in the War Master Part 2 are Jason Forbes, who you may know from A Gentleman in Moscow as the passenger, Chris Luke Hoy, who you may know from Extraordinary, where I reviewed all of those episodes from both seasons, are on the channel right now, as Salesby, and Tori Peaside, who you may know from the X-Men audio drama as the Abomination. Here's the synopsis for Dark Gallifrey The War Master Part 2. Amid the dreaming spies of Bristol University, Benny is dividing her time between her lectures, her cats, and managing the romantic advances of one of her students, John. The new provost, such a nice old man, doesn't approve of their dalliance and advises her not to get involved, for John wants to know about Dark Gallifrey, which is something Benny has done her best to forget, and thinks he can help her find it again. The funny thing is, the dear old provost wants to find it first. So Derek Jacobi said, the good thing about the Master is that he can beat anybody. He morphs all the time with this script. I liked both the comedy and the nastiness. Villains and nasty people are often the best parts. The goodies go unremarked. James Masters said, I was shaking in my boots to perform alongside Derek Jacobi. He's one of the best of the best. Best of the best. I've been watching him since I was very young. He's got a combination of playfulness and anger and love and hate all boiling around him, along with an incredible technical facility. Altogether, it will make it look effortless. Captain John's still very much himself. He's just as fun to play. He's just as morally ambiguous. It's probably the most generous term you could use for him. He's always had a latent hero inside, almost never realised. He does the right thing ever so often, so that you can just feel it there in him. So that was the press release for the Dark Gallifrey The War Master Part 2. Here's the trailer.
Hello! Am I interrupting?
Not at all. John, this is the University Provost. Provost, this is John.
Hi. Delighted to meet you, sir. Is that what I should say?
Yes. Followed by, I've heard so much about you.
From Big Finish Productions, The Worlds of Doctor Who, Dark Gallifrey, The War Master, Part 2.
So, he's a student of yours?
Not exactly.
Professor Bernie Summerfield, I'm your biggest fan.
Dark Gallifrey was a rumour sneaked into this dimension, watching over us.
How intriguing. A myth, of course.
No, I went there.
You went there?
So, What I've done, right, is I've cross-checked every mention of Dark Gallifrey. Rumours, legends, forum posts. There have been people who have made expeditions. There have been sightings. But most of all, and no one's ever done this before, if you join the dots up, there have been absences.
He really thinks he's found a way to an ancient secret of the Time Lords.
Yes.
By printing out some pieces of paper and sticking them to a wall.
Well,
Well, at the very least, we'll have to charge him for redecorating the room once he's gone. When is he going?
From the 5th galaxy to Alpha Centauri, there's this kind of zone of nothingness. A whole chunk of space that every civilization somehow fails to see.
right.
I think that's where Dark Gallifrey is.
Big Finish, for the love of stories.
Oh, and now the curtains are on fire. I hope you're proud of yourself.
Why are you so hard to kill?
Practice.
That was the trailer for Dark Gallifrey, The War Master Part 2, which I will be reviewing at some point. I think it's slightly over an hour long, so it is going to take a while for me to get there because I'm now doing things in run-time order. Next up is, we're now moving, nearly a week, or about 5 days, to the 28th of August 2024, which is when the second box set of Susan's War, titled Family Ties, was released. Let's have a look at the press release as well as Vortex and the trailer. The press release for Susan's War Family Ties is titled Susan's War continues today. Carol Ann Ford, Sonny McGann and Jonathan Carley star in 2 brand new full cast audio dramas. Susan's War Family Ties is available now. Gallifrey has sent a summons to all its children. Every Time Lord, every renegade and prodigal has been called up for the Time War. Susan has lost so much to the Daleks. She's willing to do her duty while the grandfather she knew refuses to fight. Susan's about to meet the warrior he will become. Carol Ann Ford, much love for her performance as Susan, the Doctor's granddaughter and first ever companion in Doctor Who from 1963 to 1964, returns as the iconic character for 2 brand new audio adventures released today from Big Finish Productions. As the Time War escalates, Susan is carrying out diplomatic missions for Gallifrey following on from 2020 box set Susan's War. The 2 latest assignments bring her face to face with relatives from her past, but not necessarily as she knew them. In the first story, The Lost Son, she encounters what seems to be her son Alex, played by Sonny McGann, but Alex was killed by the Daleks, so how can she be talking to him? And in The Golden Child, Susan is reunited with her grandfather. Obviously the Doctor is in Family Ties, it's the War Doctor, played by Jonathan Carley. Now though he's renounced the name of the Doctor, it's a very different man. He's a mischievous adventurer who first took Susan on his travels across time and space. Susan's 2 new adventures are, so the first story is titled The Lost Son, written by Sarah Cassidy, with the synopsis being: still reeling from meeting her grandfather back on Earth, Susan is assigned to her sister mother in search of her son. Priestess Veselina is the new ruler of her world, and someone Gallifrey is keen to recruit as an ally, but strange forces are at work at Meritos, and Susan's empathy becomes a weapon to be used against her. The second and final story in this box set is titled The Golden Child, written by Peter Angerhelders, with the synopsis being: Keala Gallifrey has winked out of existence. When Susan investigates the disappearance of this gifted politician and strategist, she finds someone else is also interested in a changed timeline. The interloper is her grandfather, but this version of the Doctor is from the future of the Time War, and he's not the man Susan remembers. Carol Ann Ford said, the usual image of Susan is as a 15-year-old, and one of my biggest gripes is that I was never allowed to grow older. I was stuck in a time warp, but now I'm proceeding to play her as a more mature woman with a great sense of duty to the planet that she's on, the people around her, and indeed the rest of the universe. So she's a very important person, a VIP now, not just to tag her along. I love being the lead character. Sonny McGann added, one of the first things I said to Carol was, do you remember me? The first one we recorded together, an earthly child, must have been 2007 or 2008, such a long time ago. And I was a skinny little teenager. That was the first acting job I've ever done, and I was terrified. But everyone was so lovely, and with the Time War stories, it's lovely to have Alex back in any shape or form. He's an interesting character, and quietly, very relatable as well. And Jonathan Carley said, as soon as I found out the War Doctor was meeting Susan, I was giddy with excitement. Carol Ann Ford is the First Lady of Doctor Who. The War Doctor is such a remote figure, and to thrust him into a complex situation with his own granddaughter from the very beginning, when he became the Doctor for the first time, and he has since renounced that. It brings up a real mix of emotions. Family Ties will be followed by Susan's War Grandfather Time, due for release in March 2025, which will comprise 2 further stories following Susan and the War Doctor's missions together. Let's actually now have a look at Vortex, which is the official magazine for Big Finish. And it is absolutely free, which you can find on the Big Finish website. Carol Ann Ford takes centre stage once again in Family Ties, the second series of Susan's War. Gallifrey has sent a summons to all its children. Every Time Lord, every Reignated prodigal has been called up for the Time War. Susan has returned home and joined the Gallifreyan war effort against the Daleks. The first box set saw Susan working with some Time Lords we know in Big Finish's various Time War Rangers, including Vector and Rasmus, and Paul McGann's Doctor popped up too. The series Susan's War was developed from All Hands on Deck, a short trip written by Eddie Robson in 2017, which saw the 8th Doctor trying to prevent Susan from becoming involved in a temporal conflict. The second release, Family Ties, features 2 adventures with the return of Sonny McGann as Susan's son Alex Campbell and Jonathan Carley as the War Doctor. Producer Hell of the Challenge tells Vortex, it's a great range to be part of, and it's intriguing to tackle even the character of Susan and where she is at this point in her life. And then the deal is really sealed with, you say, and the War Doctor is going to be there as well. That's just irresistible because it's not been done yet. It was brilliant working with Carol. The recording days were really enjoyable. It was lovely to Carol reprise the role and stretch the character of Susan as well. It felt like we were breaking new ground, not bad for a character who's been around for 61 years. The Lost Son by Sarah Cassidy is the first story, set after Susan's encounter with the 8th Doctor. Still reeling from meeting her grandfather on Earth, Susan is assigned to assist her mother in search of her son. Vestalina is the new ruler of her world and a potential recruit for Gallifrey's cause, but strange forces are at work at Matrios, and Susan's empathy becomes a weapon to be used against her. And that's before you complicate matters further with her son Alex, who is exterminated by the Daleks. Heather says The Lost Son is a story that we open with. We have the previously team from Susan's War front and centre in Vectrin and Susan, who have a nice and established dynamic. They bounce off each other rather well considering their chalk and cheese. Susan and Vectrin are sent to Matrios, where a little boy has been kidnapped, and the priestess Vestalina, his mother, thinks that the Daleks are responsible, but it might not be them. There's a lot of political intrigue as they try to figure out what's happened to the boy, and in the course of that, Susan has to confront some very painful memories. It was lovely to produce a female-centric script, and it's clear that the theme throughout is mothers and motherhood. I think all of the characters, bar Alex, are women, and it's very enjoyable exploring these different types of women and their interpersonal relationships. They're all very different characters, and it was great to be able to show that sort of breadth. New to Big Finish writer Sarah tells Vortex, I've been writing audio for a while, before Susan's War came along, as I co-created and co-wrote the continuing drama series called Station Road for a community radio station in Manchester. I learnt loads about writing for audio from that project. And in 2021, I wrote a podcast episode for the Tales from Mallory Towers audio series through the CBBC Writers Group. I really enjoyed writing for that. I was a fan of the novels when I was younger, and shortly after that I was introduced to Matt from Big Finish. We had a Zoom meeting this took place during lockdown, and we had a conversation about Susan's War. I was invited to come up with some story ideas, and I did a lot of research before submitting my pictures, the Lost Son being the one that was commissioned. While The Lost of Alex was a long time ago, I thought it would be interesting to see how Susan could be exploited as a grieving mother, and I'm incredibly grateful to Matt at Heather and Big Finish for allowing me the opportunity to write for this great series. Being given the freedom to create new characters, planets and stories is such a privilege for a writer. Susan's War is a perfect show for me to debut as a Big Finish writer because it's female-led, and most of my other stories for audio stage or screen feature extraordinary women like Susan and Vector. I really enjoyed writing their scenes, as I felt that their relationship grew in season 1, and it was important to keep on that path when we join them again in series 2. It was a definite highlight knowing that Carol Ann Ford would be playing Susan. I really wanted to give her a decent story to open this new series with. Peter Agahales has written The Golden Child, the second story in this set. A key ally to Gallifrey has winked out of existence. When Susan investigates, she finds someone else is also interested in the altered time of her grandfather, but this version is from the future of the Time War, and he's not the man Susan remembers. Heather says in The Golden Child, Susan gets a call from one of her friends, Alderaan Archivist, who says that all of Gallifrey's future key allies, who Alderaan has studied for nearly all her life, has gone, and suddenly no one can remember him. We don't know who he is or where he is, and the great events that he's meant to achieve are in flux. So Susan and Andler go back in time to discover what's going on. What's gone wrong even. And they find themselves in the middle of an assassination attempt that shouldn't be happening. They try to rectify events, except if it turns out that's very tricky to do, especially when somebody's grandfather is involved. The War Doctor has been judged back through someone's grandfather involved. The War Doctor has been jolted back through the time where he's ended up at an earlier point than he exists, so he's still a Paul McGann 8th Doctor incarnation running around. The War Doctor is not meant to be there, but while he is, he's going to get up to mischief. Peace continues. A brief was for Susan to investigate temporal incursion and to find her grandfather in a form she doesn't know because he's been thrown back in time during a skirmish in the Time War. The Big Finish Time War series does some very interesting things with the 21st century Doctor Who concept, and bringing back the first travelling companion in the 20th century is a very innovative combination. Susan's experience with her grandfather have been generally positive, whether in the 5 Doctors on TV or with the 8th Doctor in an earlier Susan's War story. The War Doctor, however, is a more disputable character, disavowed even by the Doctors who came after him. Why has he turned up, and should Susan rely on him? Susan now met half a dozen different versions of her grandfather, but is herself the same version who first left Gallifrey with him. Is a interesting dynamic to play with. Is her attitude unchanged over the centuries now that she's returned to her home world, or has her perspective evolved without having gone through the most radical change of regeneration herself? How enjoyable is writing something where time is out of joint and you can have a bit more freedom to work with changes in history? Peter says it's very enjoyable to explore what a time war means whilst making it recognisable to listeners, as well as a conflict with meaningful risks, stakes and dangers. If you can simply change the past in an ad hoc manner, there'd be no jeopardy for your story. You have to establish some understandable rules, devising those is important. Listening and writing are mere mortals who cannot revisit the past or hop into the future. Temporal conflicts are outside our experience. So a writer can be inventive about the novel stratagems that an enemy could adopt and weaknesses they would look to exploit for heroes. What counter-maneuvers should they devise, and what spycraft can they adopt to thwart those enemy tactics? Urgency and action is a good thing for companion drama, but in a time of what does urgency mean? What's an action you cannot undo? In my story, one of Gallifrey's subterfuges has not only made Time Lords vulnerable to a fresh attack, it's also tied their hands for defending against it. Susan recognises that she must take a risky and painstaking initiative until her impulsive grandfather throws a spanner in the works. Heather was delighted to be able to work with a particular friend in the series. She explains, I've been friends with Jonathan for a couple of years now. We met at various social gatherings, but until now I've not had the chance to work with him. It was really lovely. The War Doctor and Susan are a great combination. It's nice to be able to ask the question on how these two characters would interact, especially when they have changed so much from when they first knew each other, or even since they last saw each other. The War Doctor is very different to the 8th Doctor, so even if Susan's more or less on the same path as she was when she last met him, he is wildly different. He's quite secretive and antagonistic when Susan encounters him, and she doesn't quite understand. She knows that it's her grandfather, but she can't connect the dots or work out how her grandfather has become this person. He's also facing opposition to her, and she can't get a straight answer from him. Susan doesn't know whether he's there to help or hinder, and if he cares or not. So lots of questions from Susan, and a hesitancy on the War Doctor's part to answer them. If you look at it from his perspective, he's engaging in the relationship when he feels like a different person. So letting himself have a bond with Susan again is tricky for him, although we have got some very nice moments of familiarity between the two. This is the latest that Susan has ever seen her grandfather. It's a new experience for them both. For both of them, I feel like we're adding to the canon a little bit. It's very exciting. That is the Vortex segment on Susan's War Family Ties. Here's the trailer.
From Big Finish Productions, The Worlds of Doctor Who, Susan's War, Family Ties.
That's the mission. Find a lost child.
It's diplomacy. Neutralize the threat, make Mataros an ally.
I don't want Mataros to be part of your time war.
That might not be a choice for much longer. Let go of Susan. She didn't consent to this.
You were warned, Gallifreyan. Take your hands off the beastess!
I'm not a fool. I can tell when footage has been doctored. Someone is covering up the truth here. Do you know who?
I'm not supposed to converse. I talk too much.
Because this is in my head. Too much longing to see you again. My mind is playing tricks on me. No, it's not. Alex. You're my Alex. Susan. I know that voice. Nothing is ever as it seems. You've crossed your own time stream. You shouldn't be here.
Lucky for you that I am.
Lucky? The War Room can't find Maxor, and you don't remember him. No one does, except you.
The assassination explains why Maxor isn't around in our future.
It doesn't explain why I still remember him.
Or why Maxor behaves the way he does. There's more to this than we've seen.
There's the difference between us, Maxor. I'm nothing like you.
You're right. Political careers end in failure, and yours is over. Mine is just beginning.
I am chair of studies, and I'm a government advisor. I think I know what Maxor needs. Who do you think you are?
Who do either of you think you are?
Oh, how long have you been there?
Long enough to hear you both mapping out my life for me.
We need Maxor in Gallifrey's future. We have to try again.
Do you know what you're doing, Susan?
Of course. I'm just not entirely sure what he's doing. I hardly recognize Grandfather now. What has the Time War done to him? What has he become?
Big Finish, for the love of stories.
That was the trailer for Susan's War Family Ties, which I'll be reviewing, but similar to Dark Gallifrey, the War Master Part 2 and Torturing Game. The episodes are about an hour long, so it is going to take a long while before me to get there, but I will get there at some point. But that's where I'm actually going to end the episode, so let me know what you thought of Susan's War Family Ties, Dark Gallifrey, the War Master Part 2, if you've listened to it. Yes, or the news I talked about. So that was also Jenny, the Doctor's Daughter, Saving Ties. I talked about the cover and some story and cast for that. But yes, also let me know in the comments below about any suggestions of things you want me to cover on the channel. Remember that it will be in runtime order. So yes, that is it for this episode of the Everything Podcast. So like, comment and subscribe, and that's it for this episode of Everything Podcast. Goodbye.